Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. Been doing some thinking here lately, and we're creeping up on 1,000 subscribers, and I've had this channel for a few years now, but I've never actually properly introduced myself or told my story. So today, that's what we're going to do. You're riding shotgun, we're in the Camaro, go for a little drive, and I'm gonna give y'all some background on me and on where the Pork Chop name came from, aside from the obvious. And so that's what we're going to do today. So most of y'all know me as Pork Chop, but that name started years ago on a construction site. I work in telecom structure cabling systems as my trade. It's my day job. And at that time, I was in the field working as a fiber optic technician. And we were on a large steel mill site that was being built. It was my turn to make my second trip out there and work. Along that timeline, somebody decided that I was going to be out there by myself for about 6 months and just work solo. We usually work in a two-man crew in a lot of those situations. So first week out there, there's a guy with me that had already been there, one of our guys, and get reacquainted with the site and meet the on-site contact. We were subcontracted under a large electrical contractor. They were installing the cabling and we were doing the terminating and testing. And so I get out there and get going, and after a couple of days, the guy that's working with me, he goes off to whatever they've got him going to, and I'm out there by myself. So that first day, I go to the building I know where I can work. I'm waiting on to hear from my contact on site. He calls me and he forgets my name. He says, "Hey, Pork Chop, yeah, Pork Chop," and he had him a good laugh, and it just stuck, And then as time went on, he had a crew of about 25 guys. Well, they all started calling me Pork Chop, and then as the plant's coming online and they're hiring plant electricians and maintenance people, they all know me as Pork Chop. And when I would call to get buildings unlocked, they didn't know who I actually was. They only knew Pork Chop, and they would only come out there if I told them that Pork Chop needed to get in somewhere. So that's where that name came from. Not too many people call me that anymore, but there still are a few people that call me Pork Chop. But that's how that started. But my story starts way before that, like all the rest of us. As y'all know, if you're new to the channel, I'm from South Mississippi. I grew up here. My family's from the area. And I've lived out here my whole life. And I actually live on the property that I grew up on. It wasn't cleared out then, where the range and my barn and everything is, my house. It wasn't cleared then, but I wandered through those woods as a kid. When I was kindergarten age, 4 or 5 years old, things started getting pretty rough around the house for me and my brother. Parents are, things are getting bad. A lot of arguing and yelling and all that stuff, and they tried to hide it behind closed doors, but you can hear through a door in a house when people are screaming and hollering. Ended up in a divorce when I was 5, and then the custody battle and all the legal stuff ensued, and my brother and I spent plenty of time in lawyers' offices and judges and therapists and this and that, and just watching a bunch of adults argue over our lives and how we were going to live them, how I was going to live mine. A few years later, my brother moved out and he moved in with my dad. I stayed with my mom, and just a lot of back and forth and mental games being played, and stuff that you really shouldn't say to kids was being said. A lot of that went on. A couple years later, my mother gets remarried, and things start getting weird. You got a person inserting themselves into an already volatile situation, making it worse, and you're getting questioned by both sides, what the other person said, or getting, you don't love me if you don't move in with me, or you don't love us if you don't stay here, and just that back and forth mental games on a child's mind were pretty rough for me. So there were plenty of, there's also good times during that. I learned how to shoot. At 6 years old, I've been shooting. I was given my first gun as a gift. Was able to pay for my first gun with money that I'd earned myself at a very, very young age. And you can go back and watch those videos that are on the channel. My first shotgun and my first pistol. You can go back and watch those and hear some of the story on that. I also learned how to drive at a really young age. I've been driving manual transmission since I was 8 years old. It's another benefit of growing up out in the country. There's open space and drive out in the field, and those two things really lit the fire for me for something that I still feel passionate about. Cars and motorcycles and shooting. I like to go fast and I like to shoot guns, and I don't know a lot of things about what I like, but that's two things that I definitely know that I like. So that was pretty great during those times. But as time goes by, things are getting rough around my mom's house for me. I don't get along with her husband, during that time. A lot of animosity and things going on, a lot of threats being made and this and that. And so I just got really quiet. I shut off and I just moved like a shadow. I felt like a ghost in my own home. I didn't come out when they were out. I would come out at night, or even as a young child, I would just make my way outside and go roam the woods or do whatever I was going to do. And unless I was forced to be around them, I just wouldn't do it. And that pain of that turned into anger, and that anger turned into hate. That anger and hate controlled me for many, many, many years. I carried all that pain and hate and anger into adulthood, and for a long period of my life, that's who I was. As we're fast forward from being young to teenage years, what all car guys and girls are looking forward to, getting your license, being able to drive. I was very fortunate and blessed during that time. My grandmother was getting a new car, and she gave me her old car. It was a 94 Oldsmobile Delta 88. It was light blue with a medium blue interior. And I got my first little taste of freedom. And not long after that, I ended up selling that car and got my first little truck out of 2000 Chevy S10. It was already lowered, already had an exhaust on it, super loud. The exhaust was under the bed, so it just echoed under there. And it was a manual transmission. Already had windows tinted, and it wasn't fast, but I drove it as fast as I could go. I spent every penny I could earn in gas. Gas and tires. That was the only things I had money for, and food. Less food than gas and tires. And I roamed these back roads, and that's, the faster I went, the better I felt. Just being out and driving and having that singular focus is where I felt free, and all that static and all the pain and everything I was going through faded away. It faded to the background for those moments, and I felt good about who I was. And I didn't do as much shooting back then. I couldn't have my guns with me. My dad kept the ones I had over there. I didn't have it at my mother's house, so I'd only shoot when I went to see my dad on the weekend. So it was more driving was something I could do, just about on a daily basis as long as I had gas money. Fast forward a few more years, went to junior college for automotive technology, and things were getting rough around home. I'd been applying for jobs, not getting hired. A lot of threats were being made, a lot of things being said. And I was at the end of my rope. There was about to be a confrontation that wasn't going to end well for anyone involved. And during that time, I started dating and had a girlfriend, and she didn't have a good home life either. And so we moved in together, and we leaned on each other for stability, and just to have somewhere where we felt like, we fit in. We were good for a long time. That turned into a long-term relationship. But we both weren't in a good place mentally. And as time went on, we ended up getting married, and not too long after that, things went downhill, and they went downhill fast. And we both pretty stubborn and kind of just sat there in misery with each other for a while, and eventually replay of my parents, it turned into a divorce. I don't have any kids, so took that part out of the equation. And even though I knew it was coming, it hit me really hard. You know, after everything was said and done, it hit me really hard. And I decided, you know, I've always had a problem doing things for myself, and I had a place to live, and I had my Trailblazer SS, but I was, you know, I was going to do something for me. So I went out and bought my first motorcycle, the 2012 Honda CBR 1000. I'd ridden dirt bikes as a kid, and I decided, you know, lifelong dream of riding sport bikes, so I went and got one. That was for my birthday. My birthday's in May. I went and picked it up. It was low mile. This was in 2018. Low mile bike for its age, you know, like 7,000 miles, and I started learning how to ride sport bikes. And about 2 months later, I was on my way home on this road that we're on now, and ended up in a crash. A vehicle in my lane, 2-lane road, I didn't know where to go, and just about hit head on, and by the grace of God, I made it out alive, and with no broken bones. I had some road rash from my jacket pulling up, and it really damaged my neck and my shoulder. It just really jacked me up, and kind of sent me into a downward spiral. So after that, I fought an insurance battle. The insurance company was trying to blame me. It was my fault. I had a crash scene investigator from the sheriff's department come out and prove that I wasn't going fast, and they were in my lane, and it still was just this huge thing that went on for about 4 or 5 months. And I put every ounce of energy I had, everything I had, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, everything into it. I was getting my money back. I wanted my money. I wanted my bike. The bike was completely trashed. In the end, I ended up getting paid. I went out and bought the bike that y'all seen on the channel, the 2017 Honda CBR 1000 SP. This was December of 2018. I picked that bike up, and my neck and shoulder, I'd never done any physical therapy. I'd never done anything about it. I put everything I had into getting what I thought was rightfully mine out of that situation. I tried to ride through the pain, but everything was getting worse. I wasn't sleeping. I started losing weight. As time went on, I just couldn't focus, just in a complete mental fog all the time. Just felt completely out of place at home, by myself, at work, in public situations, going to buy groceries. I just felt like I was completely useless and didn't belong anywhere, and was really suffering. And felt like I wanted to crawl out of my own skin. If I could have crawled out of my own skin, I would have done it. So at some point, I pretty much decided that I'd gotten this car in 2021, and around 2022, I'd come to the conclusion that I was going to sell this car. I was going to sell my bike, and I was putting all my guns in the closet, and I was just accepting misery. Thank God, I went out on a drive one day, as I was just miserable, and I was praying, asking, you know, what do I need to do? What can I do this can't be the reality that I've got to live in for the rest of my life. And made the decision that I had to do something. I didn't quit. Went to the doctor. My neck and my shoulder, my hip, my knee, just all these things that added up. All my joints were hurting. So I want physical therapy. I don't want drugs. I want physical therapy. I want somebody to do something. I started that, and things were getting a little better. I was having a little less pain, but there was still something going on. I started having what I now know are anxiety attacks or a panic attack. I had no clue what that was, never had one, never felt one. I'd heard of it, but I'd never experienced it. And I had one, and I was like, whoa, I don't know what that was. But then it happened again and again and again. It was a monthly to a weekly to a daily to multiple times a day ordeal by the end of it. And, I've gotten to that point of wanting to crawl out of my skin, and physical therapy wasn't helping that. And I started doing some research on what else it could be. Well, it turned out it was a hormone imbalance. My cortisol level was through the roof. My body wasn't processing my hormones as it should, and I was just losing my mind. I got with a good doctor's group. They've got me set up. Things are, started turning around. And around that time, I think it was, I started this channel. And, my health got way better, or I was getting better during that time. I still was kind of suffering, but I was getting better. And a guy on Instagram, don't even know his real name, but we're basically the same age, but he lives out on the West Coast, and we talk cars and life and just, whatever. And he pushed me to start this channel just because, he lives in a city, and it's like, not everybody can experience this type of lifestyle. Most people can't go in their backyard and shoot guns or go walk through the woods or do any of that kind of stuff without, going to a range or going out to a public land area way out somewhere where it takes a long time to get there, and they can't just walk out their door and start shooting or do whatever they want to do. So he pushed me to do it, and I took it as a challenge, and I kind of went through some ups and downs at first, but it lit a fire for this kind of thing. Besides driving and guns, I like to help people, and this kind of my platform to do that. I never expected to get as far as I have with it, and it's taken plenty of time through the ups and downs, but I'm thankful for all of y'all being here. And I'm sharing these things as I learn. I'm a flawed guy. I'm not perfect. I'm not an expert mechanic. I'm not a professional mechanic. But this is a real build for me. I do the work myself because that's what I've always done. At one point it was because I didn't have any money to pay somebody else, but now it's because that's what I wanted to do. Through some bad decision making during that time, I didn't get a job as doing mechanic work or working on cars or working with cars or in the performance industry. That was just the situation of life, and you make decisions and you have to deal with the consequences. But this is part of the experience for me, and there are obviously some things that I can't do that I would have to take it to a shop to have done, but everything I can do, I do, and I want to share that experience with y'all. And if there is something that I provided that helped you out, and I've had people tell me, hey, that helped me out, I was able to get it done from watching your videos, and that makes it where I feel good about myself. I have accomplished the goal of the channel, which was to help somebody else, or to make you laugh a little bit, whether you're laughing at me or you're laughing with me. It doesn't matter. That's what the goal is for me. And I like to learn as I go with it. I may not know how to do it, but I like to figure things out, and if I can help you figure it out, even better. And I'm also not a gun expert. I've been shooting for a very, very long time. I've got tens of thousands of rounds down range, but I'm not a tactical expert. I'm not a professional shooter. I'm just a guy who loves guns. I love all different types of guns, and we're going to add more to the channel, but I'm just sharing my experiences with you, and that's what this channel is all about. This is my real life. Pork Chop is not a character. That's where the real pork chop came from. This is not a character. This is really who I am. I'm just a redneck from South Mississippi trying to live my best life. I'm feeling better and better and better, and I've taken more grip on making sure that I'm feeling good and making sure that I'm okay, and getting my health even better. I've started paying for some mindset and business coaching recently, and just have been growing and being pushed to grow and being held accountable. Joined a men's group online, where we all hold each other accountable for things we say we're going to do and for pushing ourselves in all aspects of life. But this is my real story. If you watch to the end, I appreciate you. If you've subscribed to the channel, I appreciate you. Leave me a comment, like and subscribe. We'll see y'all next time. And this was not an easy video for me to make. I do not like sharing this kind of thing, but if I can help one of y'all from sharing my story, it'll be a success. But we'll catch y'all later.